into any sensible, reasonable discussion throughout the day. Now, talking about Parliament, I think that place has a number of issues.
Yes.
Yesterday, we saw MPs, we saw the Speaker coming up on absenteeism of ministers. These people are nowhere. They're 80 in number, but a plenary, you can hardly find 3 or 5. You wonder where the rest are.
Remember, these are mature men and women, okay? These are people who are holding positions of responsibility. They are expected to make appearances and ideally do what they're supposed to do, that is present our issues. But if you're having 3 people in the plenary, what does that even mean? The Speaker has to come out and, you know, write a letter to the President.
And remember, almost for every ministry, it has about 2 or 3.
Yes.
You have the full minister. Let's take an example of, for example, water, environment,
yes,
or tourism. You have state minister for trade, state minister for tourism. Then you have the overall minister, education for higher primary, then the overall. But all these, and the MPs are saying this is retiring. That is a parliamentary work. When they talk about bills, they have to approve things, they have to pass, talk about such a budget you're talking about. If the ministers are not there, then the members of Parliament remain confused. But the issue of absenteeism is something that is in Parliament. I think we should, even if you're to roll call.
Yes.
At one time, the Right Honorable Rebecca Kadaga said, some come, they'll fill in their presence, then march out. So, what cheating of people is this? Then one had proposed, if one is a minister, then they shouldn't be a member of Parliament.
Yes.
But ministers shouldn't be picked from members of Parliament. But if you don't pick them from members of Parliament, remember they are simply ex-officials.
Yes.
Voting crucial bills, they won't vote. And you need numbers. So there's a lot of...
It's really, really sad they're behaving like secondary students, because those are the ones I know that after being roll called, they will leave the class. So if our MPs are behaving like secondary students, that leaves very many questions. But good morning, Mollen.
Yes, a very good morning to you, Philomena and Robert, and of course, warm welcome to this show, and a very good morning to you, our viewers. But guess what? While we're talking about absenteeism, you also see at least one person who has been online and doing her job, and that's the Prime Minister. And for me, I want to commend her. However, she also mentioned that she has always encouraged these ministers to be in attendance, and they're not turning up. So it questions me when, if they're not even listening to the Prime Minister, do you think that at this point they even care to be there? Again, another question is, how do you again summon them to be around? And I'll give you an example of the Minister of Education and Sports. How are you going to question the First Lady on this? And it's kind of confusing. But anyway, we do hope that they actually come through and make dialogue to make sure that we have ministers. But also one thing that caught my eye yesterday, Philomena and Robert, is the National Water and Sewage Corporation has decided to increase 5 shillings as on tariff
yes,
for the water bill, that is per 20-litre jerrycan. And actually the increment will not be cutting across everywhere. They are saying in slummy areas, the tariff will remain at the same. So me, I'm questioning this indexing, because they are saying the 5 shilling increment is due to the cost of production. But at this point, everyone is going through the same. So how are you sure that people who are outside the slums won't be facing that kind of charge? And is it even enough? So for me, I'm just looking at all these organizations trying to hike prices just because this is just unfair for me.
You know, there is one thing certainly that I know is that every organization right now, they will tell you the economic times are not really working in our favor, which is true. So everybody is trying to make sure they find ways of filling gaps and be able to meet their targets, because all these government entities, all these government ministries, departments and agencies, they all have targets. So they will do whatever it takes, even if it means increasing all these utility bills, increasing whatnot. You have to, you as a Ugandan, you will have to pay that money. The problem is, why would you do that for the people, especially in the uptown areas, and then you leave out the people in the slums? Of course, maybe they're trying to look at the income balances and whatnot, but still, we're all Ugandans. We are suffering. We are feeling the pinch.
Well, to some extent,
and besides, there are no increases to the money that we are getting. So when you're increasing utilities, do remember that for us who are getting your services, we have not had any increments. We are not science teachers at this point. So we are not excited about this.
I hope
so
you're not intending to
Well, but when it comes to
better be an equal
National
increase.
Water and Sewerage Corporation coming up and increasing that 5%, if there is any utility that we've been having and they have been honest to Ugandans, are you aware that National Water has about 3 categories of services they offer? For example, their tariffs for domestic water for domestic consumption is very different from the tariff they will give to water when you go to some of these pumps. And if you move in some of these areas, they have even improvised ways of providing water very, very cheaply. The biggest challenge Ugandans get here is we do not know how to live frugal lives. You know, that is why you'll find that a person at home,
Yes.
no, even electricity.
Yes.
Some people complain, my bills are so high, but ask them, what do you use that power for? How do you use that electricity? Someone is bathing and they almost spend a whole maybe
2
20
hours,
liters
yeah.
or 2 hours. Someone goes, they are washing in the sink, they leave water running.
Yes.
If you've ever gone to these European countries that have gotten used to this, you see how they use everything very effective. This is why you find someone is having water not from a spring, but then they have this hose pipe washing their car and leaves the kid, they play, you know.
So are you trying to say we are living exorbitant
We are
lives,
living exorbitant
despite
lives.
the fact
And
that
we must
we're
get to
in-
reality.
Yes.
And no, these are some of the things. Go back home and check yourself. How do you use your water? How do you use your electricity? For what purpose? People are not in rooms, but they're all lit.
Yeah.
You know, they're all lit. A person's you have to instead of ironing for a whole week. You know, every minute you're putting on your flat iron. That helmet is heating. At the end of the day, you're screaming, Uganda, Remwa, electricity bills. So
It's a
water
question
bills.
of discipline
Yes,
at
it's
this
a question
point
of
because now
discipline.
it will have to
And
take
then some
personal
people,
effort.
National Water, I think, gives 1,000 liters for 8,000. But some people will go to a person who is selling water. A jerrycan should even go at least at 8 shillings.
Yes.
So you're buying a jerrycan at 300. So there is a lot of exploitation, not from the government service provider, but from us individuals, where you're making extreme profits. But above all, His Excellency was very clear, let's be frugal. This is a time to know how you spend and what you spend on. These things of leaving a hosepipe water is flowing.
You know, when Robert, you say that, it actually reminds me how somebody said, we as Ugandans are detrimental to ourselves. And it takes me back in time. In my household, I must say that when we were growing up, there are certain things you were allowed to use. There are certain things you are also expected to be monitored while you're using. My parents, for example, they would be very strict. You wouldn't enter a room and leave the lights on. You know, when you're a child, you don't understand that until you get to a point where you have to pay the bills. When you know what is actually happening economically in the country, and you're seeing all these government entities coming up with, you know, things like this, strategies like this, then that's when you feel it. You're like, oh, okay, this is what my father was all about. This is what my mother was all about. You have to use the water sparingly.
Even when you're like brushing your teeth,
Yes.
like they would always pester us on, why are you leaving the tap open?
Yes.
Well, can't you just get a glass and then you use sparingly? And then you would feel like it's inconveniencing. But you look into the time when you're brushing your teeth and all this water is running, that's wastage. At that point, you can't understand. But right now, yourself, you would want to do the
There's not
same.
even water harvesting.
Without anyone
Yes.
telling you, you would want to do the same because you want to cut down on the flow.
Yeah, the alternatives of water harvesting, Robert, I mean, as opposed to using national water, if you can harvest water and save on
this
those
tank,
bills.
then in terms of emergencies, then that is when you use this water. But we are so extravagant, and this is reflected in our bills. The time for extravagance is not now.
Absolutely not. But I will tell you that this time is also for giving you some of the stories that you missed out locally and internationally. And we get to start with you, Robert. What is happening right here in Uganda?
Well, Uganda National Bureau of Statistics yesterday reaffirmed that we hit the middle class economy. Yes. Contrary to a report by the World Bank. Now, what happened yesterday, following the World Bank statement about Uganda's financial status, Uganda Bureau of Statistics has come out to defend its position that stated. The clarification was made by UBO's Executive Director, Dr. Chris Mukisa, while addressing, that is, the media and officials from the World Bank. Mukisa, in his address, had maintained that Uganda hit the middle income status level after registering the required GDP per capita. This comes at a time the World Bank, in its latest economic update on Uganda, disputed the country's middle income status, what was announced by the president during his State of Nation address. According to the World Bank's Atlas method, Uganda's per capita income was estimated to be at $84 per person during the financial year 2021. However, according to Mukiza, as projections made by the Bureau and the World Bank do not show significant statistical variations, the World Bank used UN projections, yet that is not what the Bureau is using, and therefore Uganda is already in the middle status income.
In another story, the police in Kigali have arrested a student for allegedly burning a boys' dormitory of public secondary school in Mabale Town Council in Kigali district. The dormitory went ablaze on June 28th and property worth millions of shillings were lost. The police says they have in custody a student suspected to have set on fire of a boys' dormitory in that school. Now, Police Commander SP Moses Chichoncho Muzima identified the suspect as Joseph Tumwesije, an 18-year-old senior 4 student of public secondary school in Mabale in Kagadi district. Tumwesije was found hiding in Chakadadima village in the wee hours of Wednesday morning. Now, upon interrogation, Tumwesije confessed to the crime and detailed how he committed it. Director of the school, Mabale, Yona Bugonza, said the school lost property worth Uganda shillings 800 million. According to Bagonza, the school accommodated a total of 112 boys out of the 405 students in the school. Pascal Montu Konka, who is the head teacher of the school, said the inferno left all the students' property burnt to ashes. And Susan Ategeka, a senior 4 female student, appeals to the Office of the Prime Minister and Good Samaritans to come to their rescue.
Very unfortunate. And away from that, we move to Parliament, where Speaker of Parliament Anita Among has promised to write to the President over the continued absenteeism of ministers. This has occasioned by the complaints from MPs, frequently unexplained absenteeism of ministers, which has rendered their presentation docket in Parliament irrelevant. Although ministers are 80 in number, usually a plenary session is attended by very few of these, and most of whom are ex-officials. The Prime Minister, Robert Nabanja, said they will carry on and see how to handle this. Relatedly, the Prime Minister, Robert Nabanja, also met the chairpersons and vice chairpersons of committees in Parliament, and they addressed a number of issues, how they will handle business timely and with agency. 100 members of Parliament have established a parliamentary forum that will focus on matters of land and also see how best this can be dealt with. And still in Parliament, Parliament has poked holes in the detailed action plan which government seeks to undertake to address issues regarding salary enhancement of teachers. This follows an address by the Minister for Public Service, and they said more has to be done to ensure that teachers, their plea is addressed.
Now, away from that, the Public Accounts Examination Board has released the June 2022 accounts examination results with a slight improved performance. The president of the Institute of Certified Accountants of Uganda, CDA, Constantine Mayende Otieno, released the examination at the event held at Sky's Hotel in Kampala. Now, the Public Accounts Examination Board of the Institute of Certified Public Accounts of Uganda has released the diet results with a call for adequate preparations on the side of candidates. The president of the Institute, Constantine Otieno Mayende, released the examination results and asked candidates to always ensure adequate preparations before sitting examination. Mayende said the performance in papers that require arithmetic skills were averagely done due to insufficient preparations. And the chairman, Public Accounts Examination Board, Geoffrey Byamugisha, while presenting a detailed explanation of the candidates' performance, emphasized that the Institute always emphasizes international standards of the accountancy profession while setting the examination. The Secretary of the Institute of Certified Public Accounts of Uganda, Derek Nkanja, explained that the institute works in public interest and will maintain the expected standards. Now, 4,940 candidates sat the exams, and those that sat the accounting technician diploma, certified tax advisor, and certified public accountants of the Uganda examination papers at 7 centers in Fort Portal, Gulu, Arua, Mbarara, Mbale, Kampala, and Nkozi.
Well, crossing over and looking at some of the international stories, we start off with UK's Johnson refusing to quit despite mass resignations. Now, the British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has told MPs he would keep going despite a growing list of Conservative ministers and other officials Conservative in the same regime resigning in protest over his handling of the case of a senior official accused of sexual misconduct. A delegation of cabinet ministers planned to meet with Johnson at his Downing Street office on Wednesday evening to press him to resign, according to British media reports. Transport Secretary Grant Shapps and longtime loyalist Brandon Lewis were among those expected to demand that he quit. The job of a prime minister in difficult circumstances when you've been handed a colossal mandate is to keep going. And that's what I'm going to do, Johnson said earlier at the weekly session of Prime Minister's Questions in Parliament. David Davis, a Conservative legislator who had previously called on the 58-year-old leader to resign, told Parliament that he was again asking Johnson to do the honourable thing to put the interests of the nation before his own interest and before it does become impossible for government to do its job. Johnson said he did not believe that it was against the national interest for him to remain as Prime Minister. Now moving over to India, ruling party which has no Muslim MP for the first time in history. The resignation of a federal minister has left India's ruling party with no Muslim parliamentarian for the first time in its history. Minorities Affairs Minister Mukhtar Abbas Naqvi resigned on Wednesday, a day before his term as a Member of Parliament was scheduled to end. The 64-year-old politician was the only Muslim minister in Prime Minister Narendra Modi's Hindu nationalist Bharatiya Janata Party, the BJP, that boasts of nearly 400 members of parliament. Naqvi's exit comes as the BJP faces allegations of persecuting the minority community since coming to power back in 2014. India is home to about 200 million Muslims, the world's third largest Muslim population after Indonesia and Pakistan. Naqvi has been replaced by actress turned politician Smriti Irani, who is 46 years of age. Media reports speculated that the BJP could be considering Naqvi for the post of India's vice president amid global outrage over one of its officials making controversial anti-Islam remarks. Well, bringing you back here to Africa, we look at Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo have agreed to a de-escalation process following one-day talks between their presidents mediated by Angola amid rising tensions over the activities of the M23 rebel group, the Congolese presidency said. The two countries will revive a Congo-Rwanda commission, which will resume activities on July 12th in the Angolan capital, Luanda, the Congolese president said in a statement posted on Twitter on Wednesday. It also called for a return to normal diplomatic relations between Kinshasa and Kigali, a cessation of hostilities, and the immediate and conditional withdrawal of the M23 rebel group from its positions in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. Angolan President João Lourenço was appointed by the African Union to mediate talks. I am pleased to announce that we have had positive results in our view, in that we have agreed on a ceasefire among other measures, Lourenço said in remarks at the end of mini tripartite summit attended by the Democratic Republic of Congo's Felix Tshisekedi and Rwanda's Paul Kagame in the Angolan capital, Luanda. There was no immediate word on the talks from Rwanda. Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo had traded angry statements stemming from allegations that Rwanda backs the M23, which is made up of mostly Tutsi fighters from the Democratic Republic of Congo.
In weather and climate news, a new analysis of observed temperatures show that the Arctic is heating up more than 4 times faster than the rate of global warming. The trend has stepped up steeply twice in the last 50 years, a finding missed by all but 4 of the 39 climate models. 30 years is considered the minimum to represent climate change, said Pete Selleck, a physicist and climate researcher at Los Alamos National Laboratory and lead author of the study Geographic Research Letters. We decreased the time of interval to 21 years, and at that similar time scale, and contrary to the previous investigations that found the Arctic Amplification Index increases in a smooth way, we observed 2 distinct steps, one in the 1986 and a second one in 1999. Because the decade-by-decade episodic trend identified by Selleck and his collaborators affects global weather and sea levels, accurately projecting future climate change in smaller timeframes is essential for planning any mitigation of its impacts and developing adaptation strategies. The Arctic influences the world's climate and weather, and the melting of the Greenland ice sheet causes sea level rise that threaten many coastal communities.
Well, definitely there is a lot happening, I will tell you, across the globe and in all sectors. And of course, we are here to make sure that you catch up with all that. But also, you know that in our morning poll questions, we want you to be part of us. We want you to be part of the conversations. Tell us what you think, especially on the given questions that we put out on our socials. Now, this morning, seeing as what is happening in the August House, absenteeism that is being very rampant, especially amongst the ministers, you know, getting to a point where the speaker has to write to the president to have this issue addressed. It raises a lot of questions amongst the public, but even amongst the parliamentarians and even the ministers themselves. Why is this happening? So this morning we ask, how best can Parliament confront frequent absenteeism amongst ministers? How best can Parliament confront the frequent absenteeism, especially amongst the ministers? Well, tell us what you think. If you think you have a solid, solution that can definitely confront this problem, forward it, and you never know, it could help. You know, this parliament belongs to us, and we have to do all that we have to do to make sure that everybody does what they are supposed to do. That is what they call accountability. Well, while you are at it, I also need you to listen very, 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 very well to what Robert over here has to say, especially concerning the content in the bottles he's holding.
Doing what you're supposed to do is ensuring your health is your #1 priority. And here, these 2 darlings, Hallelujah Ginger Tea and Hallelujah Tamarind Drink. At just 1,500, make sure you get yourself a bottle. And I recommend regular use, because then your body will be able to fight off a number of diseases and you'll save some money. So water bills and other issues, yes, your savings from the medical expenditure can do something else more productive.
So, Robert, can I take like 2 bottles in a week? Would that be ideal?
I recommend a bottle every day.
Oh, okay.
A bottle every day.
Okay.
Yes.
At the times I had, Robert, 1,500 Ugandan shillings. Well, we'll see.
No, you know, prevention is better than cure.
Okay.
So you rather spend 1,500, because treatment is also becoming very expensive. Even doctors have begun physicians economo giraba.
Doctor's orders right there, so it will have to be.
And when you are patient, you have no alternative. They will bill you, go to the laboratory. You have no ways you're going to question the agency, all these courts. They don't bargain in hospitals in Salida. Salida is not there.
Okay, okay. I totally see where you're coming from. Anyway, today being a Thursday, of course, you know that it's all about nostalgia. We're taking you back to the good old times. We want you to get that nostalgic feeling. And we are bringing you, you know, one of these gems that definitely was creating quite a lot of love and trying to inspire people, the Black Eyed Peas. If you're well familiar with them, well, I must say that you also know one of their greatest hits, that is Where Is the Love. If I had a beautiful voice, I'd probably give you a sample. But we shall do that for you and give you the inspiration. No, Robert, I know what you want to say, but we're not going to get into this conversation. Yes, Black Eyed Peas coming up next with Where Is the Love? And of course, when we get back, we'll be having conversations, especially amongst the students, where the strikes are really going crazy, crazy, crazy high. And of course, statistics are very evident of that. We'll be back. Good morning, Uganda. Well, rise and shine, and hello there. Good morning, Uganda. Thank you for being with us on this 7th day of July 2022. My name is Philomena Mastiko. It's a beautiful morning. Really, there are no complaints that I should be putting forward, and I hope you can share the same sentiments. Of course, I am with Robert Kirabo here and Mollen, Kenyena, and we want to know, how are you finding this Thursday morning? Well, if you haven't yet figured that out, we'll help you do that. Just make sure that you join us all the way till 9 a.m. and let's see how we can be able to go up and about our day. But speaking of our day, I must tell you there are people who clearly are really trying to give us some confused signs, Mollen and Robert. And these are our MPs. Yesterday, while they were sitting, they actually came out to say that they have not yet approved of the budget of about 495 billion Uganda shillings that is meant to be catering for all the science people in our Uganda here, of course, the teachers inclusive. And I will tell you that very many Ugandans are now confused, because if this is what you're telling us, then what about the other comments we've been hearing from government saying that the teachers are sorted, the allied health workers are sorted, doctors are sorted with these 495 billion Uganda shillings? And again, it makes me question what happened to the systematic communication that we are meant to be having in our government entities. That is the question I want to leave you with this morning. I want you to sit hard, think about it, and let me know what you think about that. But in the meantime, good morning, Robert.
Good morning, Philomena, and of course, my little sister this side, Mollen, good morning. And above all, our darling viewers, thank you so much for always waking up with us every morning. We appreciate, because we prepare so much for you. If it is food, I don't know which course this food is, but we have information packaged for you that enables you fit into any sensible, reasonable discussion throughout the day. Now, talking about Parliament, I think that place has a number of issues.
Yes.
Yesterday, we saw MPs, we saw the Speaker coming up on absenteeism of ministers. These people are nowhere. They're 80 in number, but at plenary you can hardly find 3 or 5. You wonder where the rest are.
Remember, these are mature men and women, okay? These are people who are holding positions of responsibility. They are expected to make appearances and ideally do what they're supposed to do, that is present our issues. But if you're having 3 people in the plenary, what does that even mean? The Speaker has to come out and, you know, write a letter to the President.
And remember, almost for every ministry, it has about 2 or 3.
Yes.
You have the full minister. Let's take an example of, for example, water, environment,
yes,
or tourism. You have state minister for trade, state minister for tourism. Then you have the overall minister, education for higher primary, then the overall. But all these, and the MPs are saying this is retiring. That is a parliamentary work. When they talk about bills, they have to approve things, they have to pass, talk about such a budget you're talking about. If the ministers are not there, then the members of Parliament remain confused. But the issue of absenteeism is something that is in Parliament. I think we should, even if you're to roll call,
yes,
at one time, the Right Honorable Rebecca Kadaga said, some come, they'll fill in their presence, then march out. So, what cheating of people is this? Then one had proposed, if one is a minister, then they shouldn't be a member of Parliament.
Yes.
But ministers shouldn't be picked from members of Parliament. But if you don't pick them from members of Parliament, remember they are simply ex-officials.
Yes.
Voting crucial bills, they won't vote. And you need numbers. So there's a lot of...
It's really, really sad they're behaving like secondary students, because those are the ones I know that after being roll called, they will leave the class. So if our MPs are behaving like secondary students, that leaves very many questions. But good morning, Mollen.
Yes, a very good morning to you, Philomena and Robert, and of course, warm welcome to this show and a very good morning to you, viewers. But guess what? While we're talking about absenteeism, you also see at least one person who has been online and doing her job, and that's the Prime Minister. And for me, I want to commend her. However, she also mentioned that she has always encouraged these ministers.
This is Good Morning Uganda.
Get connected today with the My Airtel 4G smartphone and enjoy free data for 1 whole year worth 86,500 Uganda shillings. That's free 2 GB for the first month and free 1 GB for the next 11 months at only 250,000 Uganda shillings with free data for 1 whole year worth 86,500 shillings, making the effective price of the 4G phone 163,500 shillings only. Airtel, the smartphone network.
Affordable packages, great entertainment, sports, the local content, telenovela, the movies. There is something for everybody. Everybody, Go TV. This is where great stories live.
Get the best entertainment for any budget. With GoTV, you will have great entertainment for as little as 13,000 Uganda shillings per month. GoTV, great stories, Zidiwano. GoTV Uganda, love it.
Enjoy more GBs for the same price on Airtel. Kirabo using to Gabane. We have increased GBs across all your favorite packs. Now, 4 GB is at 10,000 shillings and 10.5 GB at 22,500 shillings, all valid for a week. For the heavy data users, enjoy 24 GB at 50,000 shillings and 50 GB at 100,000 shillings, all valid for a month. Dial *175# or use the My Airtel app to buy these and more affordable weekly and monthly data bundles on Airtel, the smartphone network.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
It's great to have you here with us on Good Morning Uganda Newsreel on this 7th day of July 2022. My name is Philomena Mastiko and I am with Robert Kirabo Nyonyintono. Well, before we get into this morning's discussion, allow me to just remind you of our poll question where we did ask, and we want to find out from you what you think are the best ways for Parliament to confront the frequent absenteeism among its ministers. How best can Parliament confront frequent absenteeism amongst ministers? Hashtag UBCGMU, and you can use that number on the screen to give us your response, especially through WhatsApp, or you can send us a traditional text message. We'll be able to see that, and we'll be, of course, sharing it with the rest of Uganda. But this morning, myself and Robert are going to be talking about the escalating numbers of strikes, especially among schools, among students in schools. Now we are talking about, O-level students, A-level students. Now, according to statistics, right from February when we had our children return back to school, it has been going crazy. A number of strikes has been registered in almost all parts of Uganda. In the West Nile, we had about like 6 schools going on strike. But also, I will tell you that we had the most recent one, that is Chimanya Blessed Sacrament School, right here in Masaka City, where we had over 1,000 students that were expelled because of engaging in a strike. Like that was not enough. When we head over to St. Mary's Rushoroza in Kabale district, we had more than 400 students that were also let go by the school because of engaging again in a strike. Now, last week, we also had Mbarara High School, especially for the senior 4 and senior 6 students. These ones were also sent back at home because of, taking part in an alleged assault, where we had about 11 students that, that were out of all these. Now, these are just some of the statistics that have been happening. There are very many happening. We also saw in the news that we had, we saw a student who decided to burn down, a school, school property, and the school says it lost about more than, 100 million worth in property. Now, when you look at all this, definitely it sends quite a different picture, about students, about the institution, that specific education institution, about there is a lot that comes with that. But Robert, if you're going to look through it, why do you think we are having a number of students striking? And this time around, by the way, the strikes have been happening, even before COVID-19. But why are we seeing students increasing? Because February and July, more than 10 schools, at least 10 schools have been engaged in strikes. Why is this happening? What's compelling the students to strike?
There is a saying that I love so much. That is, an apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Now, what is happening in our country today is day by day we are moving away from using reason, using dialogue, and we are now moving into something else. We either fight or demonstrate. So the children, the students in schools today are children of fathers who lead riots, mothers who are parliamentarians and may not address issues on the floor, but tell communities enchamwe kalakasi enja kujja n'abamawulire. Block the road.
Yes.
This person forgetting that he has a school. If a child saw your director planting a banner, whatever's in the middle of the road, you're sending a message that where you're not contented. This is how we resolve issues. If you're at university, your lecturers, for them they may not throw stones, but they choose and say, we agree to this, we are putting our tools down. Your teachers. So, society itself is day by day choosing the wrong path to take. That is one. That you cannot blame these children if they decide that anything, for them they will choose striking. Because that is what our society, where they have grown up, that is what their leaders, that is what some of their parents, that is what is happening. It is now normal. It is not scary at all. Because the teacher who just said we are from our strike, has it been a strike? The doctors, the allied workers, when they watch TV, there's an honorable member of parliament sitting down, planting talk and all that. Around them, what they are seeing is that.
Yes.
And you can only give what you have. That is what we've given these children. When they go back home, their mothers, a small thing, unpacking. Their dads ran out from home. If that is what is surrounding them, then blame not the students, but blame the men, blame the women that gave birth to them. Blame the communities that have chosen that path and the leaders, not the students.
Okay.
But also, we must look at administrative policies of some of these schools.
Yes.
Some of these rules. You see, adjusting is a problem. Many school heads are still in analog. They have not shifted to digital.
Yes.
They still have those funny regulations that by the time they were in school are what they used to apply. Most of these frustrations that children have are from the administration. Poor administration policies, lack of effective communication in schools. You wake up one day because the headmaster was the alpha and the omega. In those days, you still think it is the same. The world moved away from that.
Yes.
Now even in your home as a father, for peace in your home, there is democracy. There are things you can't just come. I can't just go home and rain. I have a 4-year-old.
Yes.
But there are things because we are in a global village. The world has shifted where a man would come back and is the alpha and omega of a home. Now certain things you dialogue. Where the lady was, omsaja chayenda, whatever. This cannot work now. Many schools must revise how they do things. These children are exposed. Today, we used to have corporal punishment in school.
Yes.
They'll beat you to the latent, and that child will say, I'm going to beat you until I put sense in you.
Yes.
Today, you cannot. Corporal punishment, beating was long ago abolished in our schools. So some of these are policies that the administration is, that those unflexible for us in the 80s, in the 60s, this is how we do things. And no, school administration must learn that now you have students' leadership that even should be sitting on boards of school.
Yes.
When you're taking decisions. But also I must say that we are having some of these strikes because previously it was bad food, the days of Brother Ratoros in school. Bad food, they strike.
And corporal punishments?
Corporal punishment, they would strike.
Yes.
But today, we are seeing funny things. Now like Rushorosa, over television.
Yes.
Did you go to watch TV in school?
Well,
yes.
It was neither on the list. It wasn't
because
just for us.
Senior 5s, their TV, I think their TV set had a problem. So they went to watch with the senior 6. And the senior 6 said, no, if your set is spoiled, go and just have a day when you're not watching TV.
Yes.
So in that way, they fought. Good, they didn't damage property, but they did fight. When you hear strikes, boys were denied from studying preps with the girls.
Yes.
And they fight. Now, did you go to study with the girls? I mean, to have preps with girls?
Mm.
When you hear they denied them a disco, a dance, it goes back to the moral fabric and parenting. When a child burns down a dormitory, I asked one of our colleagues here that, could you, in your days, or however annoyed you were, would you burn down a dormitory? What does this mean? It is very unfortunate in our country today, and world over, by the way, that the most important unit of any society is family. And as I speak today, families have broken to the latter. When we were growing up, even if a man died, these children, they would find a fatherly figure.
Yes.
I want to be clear, not a husband to the widow, but a fatherly figure. There would be a man who would come to be a father. This woman is not your wife, no. You're not marrying the widow. But they put someone responsible in the society.
To help raise this child.
To help raise. Not that he stays with them. He would come visit them. He would come, if someone committed an offense, he would be the punisher. They would fear him or your tata. Today, many single fathers, many single mothers, we have mothers that are absent, fathers that are absent. It is the internet raising these children.
Yes.
So when the family as the most important unit is broken, that's why you're going to find it very easy to find a child who can set ablaze a dormitory. Because he was raised watching movies.
They have the audacity to feel that
Yes,
they can
he was
do it
raised-
and they won't be really
He was
held
raised watching
accountable
these
for it.
movies full of violence. For killing, what. That is what has shaped this person. Maybe even watched a movie
Yes.
where a student burnt a dormitory. Because we are busy looking for money. Our children are being parented by TikTok, by WhatsApp, by Facebook, by all these things. So when you lose the family unit, then you're going to see a lot of these things. That's why today it is no longer food, bad food. That is why today it is no longer that maybe a child was extremely caned by a teacher and they went to strike. That is why today it is no longer power cutoffs. Today it has become TV, denying dance, denying these funny things that are bringing these strikes. Because for that child who has grown up watching TV,
yes,
parented by TV, when you tell him he's not going to watch TV, you know, he's losing out. For that child who has grown since, we've coped a lot. We call them prom parties.
Yes, the prom parties.
Our days, we didn't have prom parties. What we would have was a dance for leavers, and the rest you would join in. But leavers, senior fours are leaving. Yes, after prayers, then there's a small dance that ends at 6. Today, schools are having trans nights.
Well, Robert, you did talk about communication, which is very key. And I was having certain conversations with a psychologist, and they were giving me a big picture, you know, looking at it from both the student's point of view, but also the school administration's point of view. You talk about communication, and this psychologist was telling me, I mean, if we are to trace back to almost all these cases that we have seen, it has usually been rooted from a situation where somebody who is really hurting, somebody who wants to put out their grievances, has not got the right platform to do it. Now, psychologists believe that some of these school administrations, you know, amongst their policies, they have failed to come up with a very clear communication plan to talk to these students. And by the way, the students you're dealing with, they are not children. These are young adults. You know, they are of sane mind. They can see, they understand these things, they analyze. Like you said, it's a dynamic world. We keep changing, we keep evolving. You know, things that we used to do back in the day right now are probably referred to as local things, or, you know, all these other connotations that come with it. But right now, there are things that the young children or the young adults right now do that we cannot relate to. So as a school administration, you are definitely expected to talk to these people as young adults. Tell them why you're coming up with certain policies, what you're looking at the big picture. And they believe that because most schools have failed to do that, because they have this mentality of this is just a student, we don't need to tell them. Now, when you keep away information like that, that is ideally supposed to be let go of, and these students get to know, they are going to find a way of putting out their anger, and how they're going to end up striking. And you know who is on the losing end? Both the teachers, the school administration, but even the students. However, there is also one thing he told me about, and this is where I really want you to come in. He did mention about the 2 years of COVID-19, okay? And he was saying there was a lot that happened between these 2 years, okay? And it has had quite such a very, very heavy impact on why these students are striking right now. And they were saying that back then, because students lost a lot of time, they have to catch up with it right now. And when you go into these schools, most of them are pumping children with, you know, all this work with notes. They're not actually giving them time to go and engage in co-curricular activities. We used to have co-curricular activities before COVID-19. Now they believe that the stress that is coming out of this is really taking a toll on the students. Would you actually believe that this could be the cause? You know, students are failing to find a way of letting go of the stress, and because the teachers are pumping them up, they want them to use the time that they have. So as a way of reacting to that, since they won't get the time, they have decided to resort to, you know, violence. Could this be one of the big reasons we are looking at right now?
I want to agree with you to a larger extent. And if there's any person I enjoy listening to when she's speaking in this country, most so issues to do with the moral fabric, is the First Lady.
Yes.
Mama, when she's speaking about family, oh, I don't, even if electricity went off, I would rather hire a generator, not to miss her speech. Our education system is having one big challenge. You see, when you look at how education came in this country, it was brought by the missionaries. You had schools that were church-founded, either for Christians or Catholics or on Islam. These, much as they were teaching a person, because the colonial masters, for them, they want people that are going to promote their rules, secretaries that are going to help them. But religion was very key. Morals were very key. Now, when the commercialization of education, I hope people get me very well. When we began having private schools, leave our own community-based schools, because our education shifted from those religious schools, We then had community schools, and we had schools that had Chibuye Community School, school. We had schools that were for people who had the land and they wanted to develop their areas. That omuntu yateekanga essomero mu kitundu si kufuna sente, not to get money, but he would say, for example, I'm a journalist on national TV. I know the value of education. If God has given me and I come from an area, kanzimbe essomero, not to make money, but to ensure that people in my community also study. You're seeing this shift from church or more Islam founded to people whose wish was to educate. Now trouble comes in when we went the business way. So and so side of school, mugaga, mugaga. Oh, you just start a school, bank your kwero ni abazade baje, you know. When the day we went into that, where a person starts sajja muvubi, he makes money and starts a school, then they know they're going to get money. That is where we began having issues. That today in our education, it's all about passing. And I want to fault the media. We've also done so much okuwabya eggwanga lino mu byenjigiriza. The media, you know, never know baayise. Never know baayise. The best schools in Impigi, best schools in Wakiso.
We are fronting them to the public.
Even the poor performers, a journalist goes, covers this story, then says, so and so performed this, gets the best performing and indicates maybe they did very well. They're the best in the district.
Yes.
I watch sometimes this news when we've had O-level, P7 come out, and my heart bleeds as a journalist. Because I know the problems of doing this. That today, Philo, why these children are being pumped is because we want marks. We are no longer seeing who have we brought from the education system of this country. We had a saying, weisanga atasoma, olyanga atasoma, otambulanga atasoma, because we expected someone who has gone through school that omuyivu tayinza kwokya dormitory. No.
Because they expect you to think in a different line.
Had a way it brings, it nurtures. Today tulina ebizezengere bingi ebiyise mu masomero. From the word speak, from how they handle themselves, from how their understanding, and you have a first class from this university. And it's not that he bribed. He was bright, but very disastrous to community.
They were bright, but they were not intelligent.
Yes. Because what happens is our education system, we've turned it to something you pass through as long as you have aggregates.
Yes.
I want to tell you, when you go to some of these traditional schools, Namiryango, Ndeje, Gayaza, talk about the Mbudo and all that. A child from this school, never taina grades from a school I want to mention, but they are very different. How they conduct themselves. Because the school does not only want to bring you as one who with first grade and all that, but they want to bring you as Monagayasa.
They are all rounders. They look
they
at
want
all
to look
fronts.
at your mental, your emotional, your psych, a fully packaged human being,
Yes.
if I may use that. So, as long as we are still looking at grades, kuita, as long as we are still with these rankings, best performing, these new schools that are performing very well are not mindful of what character they are bringing out. But as that person passed, they will even tell you, this boy Mularu, now in a first grade year, you can't expel him because she's going to push our rankings. So Mama Janet, Honorable Minister, let's have a big meeting and think, how do we bring back those values? Cabinet approved Kiswahili.
Yes.
Me, I would look for a way of how we inculcate, how we ensure, or it is called morals, ethics, or something, and even examinable. That would look at the character. How does this child behave? Marks. And that will be reflected on the report.
Yes.
So that a child knows, how do you talk to people? How do you handle situations?
You know, Robert, when you say that, it reminds me that actually what should be done, especially in these schools where we are having young adults, if you are very keen, when you look at the pre-primary sections, you know, the kindergartens and lower primary, I think that is where we are seeing what ideally should be done in the A and O level schools. There are certain kindergarten schools that look at the discipline of a child. All right, it's not all about academics, yes, but they look at how they socialize with others.
Just give you a simple example of pre-primary. One time, I used to pack for my child sausage, what, all that. But he would bring the container empty. And I knew this boy at home, eating is a challenge.
Yes.
So I asked the mother, but this young man, Naye Gavi, how does he eat 4 sausages, bread, this, that, whatever he pack? He said, I'm also puzzled. So I don't pick my child because the van brings me. But one day I said, let me go and find out. The things I buy for my child, other kids are eating. Oh, this boy needs, maybe I bring children around so that because he's very tiny.
Yes.
The teacher told me, we teach these children to share. So that they grow up knowing sharing is part of life. Me as the father was like, what I'm buying, it seems I'm, you know.
You're buying for the whole community.
What is happening?
You're becoming a little bit individualistic.
Pack to the maximum.
Yes.
I see if this boy is going to finish this. But the teacher told me, and I felt challenged as a person who likes morals.
Yes.
I was humbled. I went, I don't understand. The teacher humbled me. I said, I'm very sorry, madam.
Yes.
Continue instilling values in our children.
Well, I must say there is a lot that we still need to do, but I believe bridging the gap of communication, even setting disciplinary standards in schools, it's very important because you cannot be only focused on the academics. Because again, the children who will come out of that, yes, they perform well, but eventually, you know, when they get to the outside world, it's always the discipline that says a lot. Even if you're good at academics, you know what you're doing, it gets back to
Confused
you.
elite.
Confused elite. Absolutely. And of course, there is a need to create a systematic truce between, you know, the schools and even the students, but even you as a parent, you're not cut out of this equation. Matter of fact, you have a lot of work to do. Yes, the children may spend a lot of time in schools, but the background comes in from you as a parent. Even the shortest period of time they are with you, they can copy a lot from you as a parent. So as parents, we have a lot to do. As schools, there is a lot to do. And of course, even the environments in which we raise our children quite create a big impact.
You find a father, Mollen, who asked this question.
Yes.
Sorry, Philo. He says, I've provided fees. What else do you want from me? Okay, you look for the fees. When at the end of the day they graduate, and then you're asking them,
yes,
find time for these children. Mothers, find time. Because all you're working for are them.
Absolutely.
At the end of the day, you're going to have, they'll call you at school and tell you he's the one who burnt the dormitory, then he's above 18, Luzira for the rest of his life. Now, what will you have toiled for?
And this was a first-class student. We don't want to get reports like that. And who knows, we could really benefit greatly from that. We need to really cut down. Matter of fact, we need to get rid of all these strikes that are happening amongst our students in schools. We cannot have strikes with professionals, and we have also strikes amongst students. This is just too much, and it's causing a lot of chaos and confusion. Well, that's it from this morning's discussion, but also just to remind you of our poll question, where we asked what is the best way or how best can Parliament confront a frequent absenteeism amongst ministers. How best can Parliament confront frequent absenteeism amongst ministers? Tell us what you think. We'll be back with the press review right after this break.
When you talk about our motherland Uganda, the Pearl of Africa, you cannot fail to smile because of the smile that fills the faces of the citizens. Our nice good weather and nature that sustains us all, that enables us all to continue each in their own way because we are all different even according to each individual's work. But what joins us to become one person is the sweetness from the flavored drink Alleluia Jingati drink and Alleluia Tamarind drink. The flavor that quenches your thirst while at the same time treating and healing your body because it is 100% natural. Enjoy the drink that has got the tamarind juice in it. Made by Alleluia Reflexology, Healthy Solutions and Nutritional Research Center Limited. Get yourself a bottle of Alleluia from all shops around.
Malnutrition in all its forms remains a global challenge, as at least 1 out of every 3 children globally is affected by some form of malnutrition. Nutrition priorities are embedded in the Sustainable Development Goals, particularly SDG 2 and the ISN 2. The national launch of the Phase 2 of the National Information Platforms for Nutrition will take place tomorrow, Thursday the 7th of July 2022, starting at 8:30 a.m. in the Conference Hall, Office of the President. The Right Honorable Prime Minister Robina Nabanja will officiate at this function. The NPIN 2 launch will be telecast live on UBC TV from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. and will be streamed live on all UBC, UNICEF and European Union social media platforms.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Well, taking a look at the Daily Monitor and what is happening in the papers or in that specific paper. This morning, we start off with a big headline: how Minister foiled local government staff strike. Now, more than 70,000 local government workers across the country had planned an industrial action starting, of course, today over government's failure to increase their salaries as promised in collective power agreement in 2018. However, that seems not to be happening. Well, you can get that story in pages 4 and 5 of the Daily Monitor. At the big picture there, fare thee well. Museveni eulogizes Professor Dranzowa as a professional, and the pictures clearly show that. In more news, over 1,000 teachers on payroll illegally, and Christians arrested over theft of holy water. Oh, wow. Okay, I must say that this religion thing is taking us too far. Now, you can get that story in the Daily Monitor. And God kills wife and also flees. The story is on page 3, and looking at national water increases tariffs that you can also catch in the Daily Monitor today. And in the relationships pullout, there is how Lynette found love from a Facebook message. Well, who knew that social media could yield results like this? Moving on to the second page of the Daily Monitor, Museveni eulogizes Professor Dranzowa as clean educationist, and they're giving you the full detailed story. Taking you back in history, Kenyan press claims 245 Kenyans killed in Uganda. The year was 1976, same day. And still in history, future U.S. President Carter marries at 21 years of age. 1946 is the year we are looking at. For you to know what happened, who was it that he married, grab yourself a copy of the Daily Monitor. Well, the New Vision, Mollen, what are we looking at?
Well, in the New Vision for this morning, they're giving you a little bit of good news if you're looking. That is over 280 tenders inside. But also a big headline right there, all government directors lose jobs. Well, positions abolished in restructuring. Details are on page 4 of the New Vision for this morning. Now, in the series with the Vision undercover journalists, they look at how Uganda girls are sold into slavery. That is a detailed story on pages 46 and 47 of the New Vision. Now, they give you a picture right there of the UPDF overruns more ADF camps in Congo. Of course, members of Uganda and DRC armed forces are checking in right there. And also in the New Vision, registered law firms in Uganda listed. Now, details are on page 25 and 32 of the New Vision. But also what is being looked at is how Uganda can export more. Now, that is also detailed on page 16 and 17. Now, on the second page, still looking more into the parish development model, they give you PDM not for civil servants. Well, who then is it for? Details are over there as they outline it for you in the New Vision. In opportunities, NADS empowers Kampala farmers with 176,000 chicks. Well, that is also right there. And who are the beneficiaries? How do you get there? It's all detailed in there. Now, today in history, July 7, 1997, Obote launches Agenda 21. And also taking you back to 1997, still call for constitutional reforms in Kenya turns to a bloodshed. Of course, that was the pressure under President Moi's government. They also give you more details of that. That is in the New Vision.
Crossing over to the Daily Monitor, sports front foot forward approach backfires. Oh, that is the big story over there. So you can also know what we are talking about or what Daily Monitor is talking about when they say that. Now, looking at the Rugby Africa Cup, Wokorach penalties edge Africa Cup thriller. And again, this is a story worth reading into. Giving you also the 2022 Africa Cup semi-final result, Uganda 30 and 29 for Senegal. Well, I can say Uganda is shining there, and clearly that gives us some hope. Well, 2022 FIFA World Cup back home, Brighton's Tariq Lamptey and Athletic Bilbao's Inaki Williams are among 5 players who have switched their allegiance to Ghana's Black Stars. Well, that and many more in the Daily Monitor Sports section.
Well, also in the New Vision Sports, they're giving you right there, Ndeje work is underway. Now looks like the first brick has been laid after months of waiting. That is towards Ndeje University sports facilities ahead of the East Africa University Games in December. Now they're giving you some of the engineers right there, starting on the works, and we hope it will be ready. But more details are in the New Vision Sports. Lessons for Uganda. That is talking about the Women's African Cup of Nations. Well, Coach Lutalo is defending the Uganda 3-1 defeat by the host Morocco. And he hopes that it's just a learning lesson and his team will do better. But well, they also give you details of that and how he plans on rescuing us after the women are nearing exits for the AFCON right there. But also inside the New Vision Sports, they are giving you Nalwo's reports to camp. Of course, that is as she teams up with colleagues talking about the Commonwealth Games in Birmingham that was, have been both beefed up with Tracy Nalwo's right there. That is on the second page of the sports section in the New Vision.
Now, switching over to the Daily Nation, what's happening over there in Kenya? Decision 2022 still taking the lead. Exposed names behind the polls lies. Politicians, of course, are financing a flurry of falsehoods and distortions aimed at, winning them, backing in the August elections. A nation investigation that involved analysis of tens of thousands of Twitter, TikTok, and Facebook posts shows. Well, you need to see the questions that are being raised in this story. You can catch it in the Daily Nation. While still in most stories, high gas prices despite tax cuts, and court freezes billions in money laundering probe, and also come clean, the IEBC telling poll claims. Well, we are yet to find out how that is going to turn out. Now we're looking at reactions, what social media sites said, especially in the big split, fake versus authentic. Well, we are looking at, of course, Rigathi and Safaricom, then we're looking at Raila and Mitumba. So the Daily Nation must be very interesting this morning. So you can catch up on all that by getting yourself a copy, and you know, you get to know what is happening over there in our neighboring country. But before we get into the traffic updates, just to remind you of our poll question and probably share with you what some of you think. We did ask, how best can Parliament confront frequent absenteeism amongst ministers? Now, coming in from you, Derek, you're saying, good morning, family. I think the only voice that Cabinet can take seriously is the President's voice. I think let the President make a reshuffle at least 3 times in a space of 5 years and drop the lazy ones and replace them with serious ones. They deliberately absent themselves with no genuine reason. It's betrayal to both citizens and government. Thank you so much, Derek. Well, keep the feedback coming in, definitely, as we are also getting onto the roads this morning. Now, I want to focus on Kawempe division, places, people who stay in there, you know, from Chisasi all the way to Kampala, also looking at people in Kalere, people in Gayaza, as it is one of the main routes that is used to access the city center. I could say that it is fairly busy this morning, especially for most of the roads that are really tainted with red dots and some orange dots. However, the biggest percentage of these roads is covered in green, meaning that it shouldn't be a big problem, especially trying to navigate in the specific areas. Now, if you're coming in from Chisasi, definitely I could say it might be an easy route for you as you're getting to the city center, as shown by the green lines over here. Now, this clearly tells that you have nothing to worry about, as of course you're trying to connect to Chebando. However, there is always a detour you could take off Bahai Road to make sure that it's easier for you. And this Bahai Road is actually very free this morning over here to make sure that you don't, you know, face any hindrances. However, the Gayaza-Kampala road is quite busy this morning, and I must say that we are seeing some stretches of orange over here, showing that the traffic is building up in this specific space or that specific part of the road. And of course, as you're still going on and getting to Nyanzi Road, Katale Road, you should be expecting some traffic as portrayed by this red dot and the orange line as well. So the traffic on this road is quite busier than most of the other parts. Now, for those of you using the Tula Road, around the junction here, it becomes very busy, and the lines over here also tell you the same story. It's not something that you should ignore. Matter of fact, you should look out for it. Yes, the traffic is building up, and for some spots it has already become heavy. That could be quite a big hindrance you may face this morning if you're using Tola Road to access the city center. However, as you're headed still to Komamboga, Bahai Chadondo Road, I could say that this one is a road that you could freely use this specific morning because you won't face any problems. Matter of fact, it's all green and looking very rosy, so that shouldn't be a problem for you if that has been your usual route. So yes, if you're coming in from all these areas and trying to get to the city center, it shouldn't be something that you worry about. However, as you're getting to the city center, it is I think it's inevitable for you to start worrying, because when you get to the city center, the traffic starts building up. Now, that shows that maybe people left their residences very early in the morning, and maybe to, you know, in a bit to beat the traffic. But of course, when you get to the city center, that is not a story you can witness. The traffic is heavier by the minute. But also, a tip for you who is using the roads this morning. I have noticed that Ugandans have decided to become very tone deaf, especially to the traffic lights. You need to be very you need to have the ability to follow the traffic lights. They're put there for a reason, and of course it's to make sure that everybody is safe on the road. So every single time you are at the spot that has traffic lights, make sure that you follow what they're saying. If it's a red, please do what the red tells tells you. If it's an orange, do what it is directing you to do. And if it's a green, please do what the green wants you to do. And maybe by then we'll probably be back and be check to make sure that we all use the roads as we are supposed to do. And again, road rage has never been a thing. It has never been a good thing, although very many of us try to become very angry on the roads. That can make you, take on very serious and bad decisions. So yes, follow the traffic lights and try to avoid getting yourself in a road rage situation. It has never been good. Well, that's it from the traffic updates. My name is Philomena Mastiko, but we also need to know what's happening in the sphere of climate. What are we looking at, Mollen?
Well, this morning we did start off with a story about the Arctic warming, and this is not good news coming through. And for that, we actually have to relate to the science, go back to the starting point and see what is this all about. Because what is coming out right now from the research and also the satellite data that does come in from some of the organizations that keep a track of what is happening on the Arctic is that it has been warming 4 times bigger than the normal rate of global warming. And of course, that is worrying because now then you start looking at the melting of the ice sheets. Now, if you take it back on why we are actually worried about, the June results, obviously that are indicating a plus 0.17 degrees Celsius, that is warmer than the industrial level. When we're talking about industrial level, we're looking at the period between 1951 and 1980 average. So meaning that that has actually been a very, very huge increase. Because the Arctic, these are cold areas. This is one of the areas that, keeps the world warming into check because these are extremely, extremely cold places. Now, when it starts to warm, that means you're pushing away more water that is coming from all these melting ice sheets. And that is where the worry comes through right now because you want to ensure that at least everything is to the normal. But seeing as to how all the reports are coming up to say, okay, this should be worrying because right now we're worried about more sea level rise. And of course, sea level rise threatens coastal areas. We have seen a lot of islands that have, almost gone underwater, even by, being hit by just the cyclones or typhoons. And one of those that have been highlighted to be mostly affected, I'll tell you, is countries like Fiji. Because even when they get extreme weather events, it's to that extent. But they have also, seen levels where the sea levels are increasing, and that could be burying the entire island. We did see the Prime Minister at the last COP26 in Glasgow. He actually gave a report standing in water, and he was making a statement saying, look, if we do not avert the crisis, the climate change crisis, we could be looking at Fiji going underwater just as he was presenting that. So this is what we're worried about when we see the Arctic starting to warm. That means there's going to be more melting and all this water is obviously running into the seas, and that will increase levels. And for cities that are also below sea level, we could be looking at a very, very devastating situation. But of course, this information is still being compiled and, of course, given out there for scientists to now advise on the policymakers and see how we can accelerate our climate action plans because we're running out of time. These are clear indicators that the climate is changing and we can no longer wait to sit in all these meetings and decide what happens next. Yet we are already seeing the extreme weather events coming through. Now, talking of which, we will still follow up on the Sydney floods. These have been really catastrophic across the area, and what we do know so far is that at least there has been a subsidence in terms of rainy conditions. We look at the rains going down, but that also has been over the last 5 days. That started easing yesterday, but also the residents are looking to return to their homes. That is after evacuations were done, and of course people were, told to actually wait until the rains have gone down. And it looks like now the rains are going down and they could easily return home. But also flooding could continue for the next several days. That is within the rivers and the dams that are already to full capacity, even before the latest storm. Now that is coming in from Australia's East Coast authorities. That is looking at the projection of what this could be. So yes, the aftermath is there. There has been a lot of destruction. However, they still worry that most of these rivers could burst their banks and still increase the flooding. So even when they're advising residents to get back and to ease up on the evacuations. Still, they are saying the New South Wales that is to the mid-northern coast of Australia could be looking at, evacuations even during the night. So this is something that is still on the lookout. However, still scientists are pointing out that some of these events are not normal. They are out of what has been ordinary. Yes, having heavy rains is kind of normal, but then when it gets to this extent, the frequency itself is what alerts it to be related to the variations in climate change. And of course, we have seen that now it has caused a lot of disruptions and roads that have been washed away, prompting a lot of cutoffs, and of course some of the buildings that are already underwater. That is going ahead to show you how much is being looked at in terms of what these extreme weather events can actually contribute when you're talking about disrupting human life. This is what we're dealing with on a daily, and it's not just there, but most countries are dealing with most of this. Now, yesterday, there was a sitting in the EU that was mostly to regulate, the more production or investment into gas and most of the fossil fuels. And of course, the whole idea of having this meeting with the EU policymakers was to see that they come up with a strategic plan and agree on where the next investment should be in a bid to get to climate neutral investments. Now, there were fears that some of the policymakers could actually, support the idea of going on with business as usual. But, it's amazing how the decision came through, because now they're saying that, no, we cannot do that. We're going to go climate neutral. And even the investments that are looking to do in oil and gas, they are saying that most of the plans that they are welcoming on the table will have to be about keeping everything within the climate neutral area. And of course, that comes in as good news. However, these are policymakers we're talking about, meaning that there will be policies made, but the implementation part of it is what would be worrying. But I would say it's good news, because we do depend on some of these countries to actually make through or come through, because we know that some of them are the biggest exporters of oil and gas. So yes, if they are making this, that means it comes in as good news. So the EU has ruled labeling investments in gas and nuclear power plants as well as climate friendly. And of course, that goes to throw out an attempt to block this law, which has been going on for several campaigns, that some of the politicians actually were the ones blocking it out. But now between countries, they are going to look at how to fight climate change, of course, with investments going for nuclear plants as well, being climate friendly. And that can be the target right there. But also interesting for this morning, something that caught my eye, some of the youth that were taking it to the roads saying, you know what, denial is not a policy. Yes, we're saying, yeah, we're going to be putting up all these policies, but we do know that there are people who are skeptic about what is being done in terms of climate action. But these young people are saying, no, this is our future that we're talking about. Yes, we might not be involved in making the policies, but we are not okay with you denying the fact that we are suffering because of climate change. And that is not a policy. And their message is quite clear, and I can attest to that. Because the more we talk about policies, the more we talk about what is happening, and we are denying it right in front of us, we will only be adding to, the already bad situation. But when we come back from here and take a look at what is happening across home, we'll be tapping in from our satellites over Uganda. Of course, that is indicating quite some dry weather for the southern part of the country. But good news, contrary to what was happening yesterday, we start to see a little bit of good news coming through, with a bit of rains starting to develop across most especially the northern part of the country. Well, I'll tell you this, yesterday we're dealing with mostly sunny weather for this area, so the rains do come in to help, especially taking those temperatures a bit down. Now, if you can see the orange-blue colors right there, that is indicative of the rainy systems that are developing across the northern parts of Uganda, that is stretching all the way from the Kirabo region towards Badel. Mulu already having a little bit of those rains expected to come through as well. Towards West Nile, parts of Arua, also that system is headed your way. You do have areas of Yumbe as well. Looks like you also have a rainy system headed your way for this morning. And of course, we do expect that system to continue for several areas throughout the morning, especially for the West Nile, that is the northwestern part of the country, seeing as this system that is coming through from South Sudan is actually headed southwestwards, meaning that it could be bringing more rains towards West Nile. Now, also where the rest of the country might be benefiting from, especially if you're within Central, we do have at least most of those spilling over cloudy weather towards areas of central parts of Uganda. Also across the Lake Choga region, we're looking at more clouds developing over the area. And of course, that might help bring in a little bit of rains later. But also towards Midwestern Uganda, you look at areas of Hoima already having that cloudy weather. Of course, that brings in a little bit of pleasant morning for you right there. But of course, some of those rains might not cross over into the area. You look at parts of the eastern region as well. Amuria right now and across Soroti developing a little bit of clouds. We do hope that those can actually help with kickstart your morning. But again, it might not be enough to bring in the rains. Also, same for the western parts of Lake Victoria. We're seeing a little bit of rains developing across parts of Tororo and just, over a few areas. But looks like that system is just clearing off, so that might clear area places for mostly sunny intervals as we head towards the morning. And also across parts of central Kampala right there, we're seeing an interval of clouds and sunshine. Looks like we might continue with that for quite a while, but we do have rains in the forecast we'll be looking at later. And also you look at the southwestern part of the country, starting off with quite intervals of sunny and cloudy conditions. Now looks like that area might also be dealing with much of that later, even as the day continues. But we'll go ahead and take a look at the forecast that is coming in from the Uganda National Meteorological Authority and see what to expect for this morning. We start off with the western part of Lake Victoria. That is where we have Masaka, Kalisizo, we have Sembabule and Rakai. We are forecasting a mix of cloud and sunshine, starting off with quite a warm 26 degrees centigrade. Now across southwestern Uganda, that is where we have Mbarara, Iban, Davushenyi and Ruizi, starting off with a pretty sunny morning at 27 degrees centigrade. Quite warm for you right there, but we do expect a little bit of intervals of cloudy conditions later towards the evening. Now across Mount Elgon Highlands, that's where we have Mbale, Bududa, Boko, Sironko. We're still forecasting intervals of sunny and cloudy conditions. Looks like the clouds are also coming through, and of course that is keeping temperatures a little bit down at 25. Quite chilly for you right there. Now we look at the eastern part of Lake Victoria, where we have Tororo, Busia, Iganga and Jinja. We already have those clouds that are coming through for now, but we expect intervals of sunny conditions later, even as the day progresses, starting off quite warm at 27 degrees centigrade. Now, eastern Uganda, the forecast does indicate that we will have a mix of clouds and sunshine, and of course starting off with quite a pleasant 26 degrees centigrade. We do expect a little bit of rains though later in the afternoon, but that will also be over a few areas for that region. Now across the eastern part of central, that is where we have Ruwero, Woblenzi, Burudi, Nakaseke. We do have Nakasobola in that category as well. We are forecasting a mix of clouds and sunshine, starting off quite hot for this morning. That is at 28 degrees centigrade. We do expect some of those conditions to cross over into the afternoon, meaning that it will be quite a hot day for you if you're anywhere around that area. Now, the central part of northern Uganda, we're already seeing some of those rains coming through. We do expect those to continue throughout the morning, and that will also be starting off with quite a warm 27 degrees centigrade. That system might actually stick around even later in the afternoon, so that is one rainy area for today, according to the forecast that is coming through. Now, for the central part of Lake Victoria, that is where we have Mukono, Kampala, Entebbe and Wakiso. We are forecasting those isolated showers expected to come through as the morning progresses. And of course, temperatures also starting off with quite a chilly 25 degrees centigrade, mostly cloudy weather was expected for later in the afternoon. That is most especially across areas around Lake Victoria. And we could also be looking at more of those sunny conditions continuing across the western part of the country. Now, generally, it looks like we have quite a big turn in our weather conditions, especially for the northern sector. That is the excitement, because at least most people within that area are carrying on with the planting season, and of course those rains are coming at the right time. They're well needed over there. Well, that is it coming through from the weather in nature. We do have more programming for you. Good Morning Uganda agenda coming up, and of course later than that we'll also be having sports highlights, and not to mention after that we'll also be having Good Morning Uganda extra coming through. Well, my name is Mollen Kenyena. I want to wish you a good day.
This is Good Morning Uganda.
Get connected today with the My Airtel 4G smartphone and enjoy free data for 1 whole year worth 86,500 Uganda shillings. That's free 2 GB for the first month and free 1 GB for the next 11 months at only 250,000 Uganda shillings with free data for 1 whole year worth 86,500 shillings, making the effective price of the 4G phone 163,500 shillings only. Airtel, the smartphone network.
Welcome to English in a Minute. Every language has weather-related expressions. 2 common weather conditions are rainy and sunny.
Jonathan, are you coming to my lawn care party? We need to mow the lawn, pull the weeds, and cut down a dead tree.
Of course, I will be there.
You know, you also said you were coming to my paint my kitchen party, and you didn't.
This time I will. Come rain or shine, I will be at your place Saturday morning.
Come rain or shine means something will happen no matter what. It's a promise. You can even use the phrase when talking about the actual weather. So, if you invite people to an outdoor party, you can tell them it will happen come rain or shine. And that's English in a Minute.
Pick of the day on UBC. Was brought to you by
Simply deposit 20K or more on your mobile money for a chance to win 3 Toyota Succeeds and money to 2,000 lucky winners every week. We're giving away 24 cars and over 2 billion shillings of mobile money.
Malnutrition in all its forms remains a global challenge, as at least 1 out of every 3 children globally is affected by some form of malnutrition. Nutrition priorities are embedded in the Sustainable Development Goals, particularly SDG 2 and the ISN 2. The national launch of the Phase 2 of the National Information Platforms for Nutrition will take place tomorrow, Thursday the 7th of July 2022, starting at 8:30 a.m. in the Conference Hall, Office of the President. The Right Honorable Prime Minister Robina Nabanja will officiate at this function. The NPIN 2 launch will be telecast live on UBC TV from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. and will be streamed live on all UBC, UNICEF and European Union social media platforms.
Live from Now Avenue in UBC Studios. This is Good Morning Uganda.
When Churchton arrived in Uganda, he looked at a very beautiful country and he said, this is the Pearl of Africa. Because he had never seen a country as beautiful as Uganda all his way to here. Now, when I look outside the windows of our studio, it's bright, sunny morning. That is what it is. And I know Mollen has given you details of weather updates later on with the other forecast. But you just wonder, one morning it is very cold, it is raining, the other day the sun is bright, it is out, and you have no excuse for getting to work late. So wherever you are, please ensure you arrive at your workstation on time, and you do not have to be chained in one place for you to keep on watching us. No. We're on our YouTube channel. There you can carry us wherever you are. In case you missed a bit of this show, a segment, you can rewind, you can forward at any time of your convenience. So you have no excuse for saying you did not watch the show. Simply move with your phone, simply even at your workstation, just go to our YouTube channel, you'll be able to watch this program. Remember, we're here from 6:30 to the hour of 9. And welcome to Good Morning Uganda Agenda. In this segment, we have our guests in studios, and you can also be part of the topic of discussion by simply going on our social media platforms and giving us that feedback. We really cherish and honor that. Now today, we want to look at the 2022-2023 national budget. And we want to analyze, is it child-centric? We want to look at the investment in children. Remember, children are the future of any country. So how did we prioritize this in our budget's allocation? And with me on set is a lady from Uganda Death Network, and that is Tumuhe Hilda, who happens to be the research associate in this organization. Hilda, you're most welcome.
Thank you, Robert. Good morning, Robert, and our dear viewers. I'm Hilda Tumuhe from Uganda Death Network.
Nice having you, but just to give shape to the discussion, we are going to be discussing issues of children and issues of budget allocation if they were prioritized. How does Uganda Death Network come in?
Uganda Debt Network was formed in 1996 as we advocated for debt relief, and indeed we attained this in the early 2000s. And after getting the debt relief, well, this came with conditionalities. Yeah, the first conditionality was poverty reduction, invest the money in poverty reduction programs, invest money in universal education, and indeed government formed the UPE, that is the Universal Primary Education, and other many programs. Yeah. So as Uganda Debt Network, we decided to actually follow the prudent allocation of these resources in order to attain the goal of the debt relief, that the resources are put to the right use and the intended beneficiaries actually benefit from what the resources were intended for. So that is when we come in to investigate to what extent this national budget is actually looking at child-centric programs like the human capital development.
And of course, in this, the financial year 2022-2023, priority was given to human capital development, taking the biggest share, and of course, that involves education. Let's just have a brief overview of this budget in terms of allocation, and I want us specifically to look at areas of education, areas of health. What is your general assessment?
Yeah, while it seems like human capital development has actually taken the largest share, that is about 28% of the national budget, we actually credit government for that. We actually see that government is really having the children at heart, because human capital development program entails the former sectors that actually really touch the child. That is the health program, we have the water, we have social protection aspects in this program, and then we also have the education. So while it seems to have taken the lion's share, we noticed that 63% of this human capital development program will actually be going to the recurrent expenditures. That is the wage and the non-wage. And we only see only 37% of this, but only 37 going to development. Yeah. So this is a very big gap. Yeah, because when it goes to the recurrent bit, it means that it is only going maybe to the salaries, which are going to the few people, but the intent, the development bit, whereby if we look at education, it would be, we would say that building schools, you know, rehabilitating schools, refurbishing the teachers' quarters, even in the health sector. The development bit is only 37%. And of the 37%, only 25% of the 37 will be contributed by the development partners, yeah? So it means that government is actually contributing very little to the development tranche, because you 37 minus 25, you have about 12 being contributed by the government of Uganda. So it implies that without the donors, it will really be a tsunami, because government has really not put a lot in the development bit. And we notice that a number of schools are actually dilapidated since the outbreak of COVID-19. Some schools are having anthills and all that. So there is need to actually revamp the education sector. Yeah, much as government has increased the education budget to about 4 trillion from 3-point-something trillion last financial year, we see that this increment is actually going to the increment in wage. Yeah, yes, they are going to, the teachers are going to be, how do I call it? There is an increment in wage. They are motivated.
They are going to be motivated.
Exactly, but of course it's also a small portion of the teachers. And but we see that where the children are supposed to actually access the education, it has not really been put in place. Say for instance, the schools that were destroyed during the COVID-19 outbreak, the 2-year lockdown, whereby the children were out of school, we see that there is still a gap, and the schools really need rehabilitation. Yeah, now when we look at special case regions like Karamoja and Acholi, especially for Karamoja, now with a few schools being dilapidated, yeah, there is a program that Save the Children International Uganda and the government of Uganda and the communities in this region took an initiative to start up the alternative basic education for Karamoja region. These are called ABEC. So these ABEC centers, children learn in a community setting really, whereby they can go out to graze, but they still come back to class. And most of the structures are temporary in these schools. Children learn under trees, temporary structures, which are really not conducive for learners. What does it imply? In harsh weather conditions, children will actually not study. Yeah. Then the other reason, we see that government has actually not taken on some of these schools into the formal way of government funding schools, like the UPE. Yeah. So teachers under these schools are totally being facilitated by the donors. Yeah. So in the event that donors are pulling out, it means that education in Karamoja, some of the sections, the students will have nowhere to access education, or they will be forced to move several kilometers to actually access education, which is a very big disadvantage on the side of children. Yeah, so it's better if government can actually take on these schools, code them. They also get the little funding it will increase over and over. Yeah, so this would be one of the biggest ventures for Karamoja. Then the other missing link in the human capital development, especially under education, is the school feeding. And you see, school feeding is very crucial, especially in areas like Karamoja. We see that children actually come in to only eat. Sometimes they're forced to come to school just because for their food. Yes. We see in the early 90s, enrollment in areas like Kabongo was about 500,000 pupils. But when World Food Program came in to actually give food to learners, enrollment shot up to about 1,400,000 pupils in school. And indeed, in the times when World Food Program delays to actually bring food to the schools, learners don't come. They don't turn up for school. Yeah, and
so they come for the food.
Yeah, they come for the food, but in the long run, they also
get education.
They also access education. So there is really much to do by government. If government can take on that responsibility, because in this area of the country, we see that people are really poor. If a household cannot even have a meal a day, that means they can also not afford to actually pay for the school meal. Yeah, so there is need for government to actually take on this role. There are wet parts of Karamoja, yeah, like the Namalu areas in Nakapiripirit, And in around 2015, government actually took up an initiative to collaborate with the Namalu Prisons farm, where they grew tons and tons of maize and distributed to the schools. This was a relief on the bit of the World Food Program, where government came in to actually also provide some food to the learners in the area. So we need a sustainable plan. Because in the event that World Food Program is not here, does it mean that there is no education in Karamoja?
Very interesting overview of some of the areas in the budget for the financial year 2020-2023 that was passed and of course read to us as Ugandans. We are trying to see if it is child-centric or if it is centering or putting in those investments in our children. Remember, this is the future generation. Now you've brought in a very interesting issue, which is feeding. I know much as NGOs, civil society, you do accountability, you monitor government, you look at some areas. The feeding issue is not only a problem in Karamoja, but government believes that also a parent has a role to play. Government may not do everything for you. Government may not have the best, but there are roles. Why would we fix feeding as part of something that government should do? Yet there is a clear policy that government says we pay the teachers, we have the infrastructure, please find something for your child to take. Even those that are in private, the children find something. So for you, I know relatively anyone would prefer private school, but if you're for the public school, universal primary education, have that little.
While it is actually very clear in the Education Act that the role of feeding a child at school is left to the hands of the parents. But I want us to take a scenario where we see poverty levels rising. Yeah. Hunger has actually hit Karamoja. There is a recent report by the Monitor Special Report. It actually highlights that hunger has hit Karamoja to the dot in this current year, 2022, where we see about 25 children dying in Kabong in the last 3 months because of malnutrition. Yeah, definitely this arises from hunger, or they are not having enough food components to actually boost their nutrition. So indeed, the population is poor. With this economic crisis, we have the inflation going up, the prices of food are really high, the price of basic needs are high. So if we leave this burden to parents alone, yeah, we want to see government actually coming in to revamp the economy by boosting livelihood incomes. Then you can tell the parents to actually provide the food to the learners. Yeah, but before really helping the parents out of poverty, you don't expect them to really provide meals at school. Yeah, we thank government for the recent initiatives like the parish development model that is intended to actually elevate 39% of the people in the subsistence economy into the money economy. Yeah, this can actually help for parents to provide food to the learners. But before parents' pockets are actually broadened, there is no way parents are actually going to provide this food, because even at home, parents are going hungry. They hardly access a meal. So that's why we want government to come in with programs like school feeding, not necessarily actually providing the food. They can revamp school gardens in areas where gardening is possible, where schools actually have land. We used to do this in our early times when we were going to school. We used to dig, yeah? So if these programs are revamped in schools, we just need a financial where government is inputting into the school gardening, yeah? Just one financial year or two. They buy the equipment for digging, just gazetting, preparing the gardens. As time goes on, the schools will actually run the gardens themselves, yeah, without putting the burden on the parents and as well without burdening the government on the other hand. Yes, so it is very crucial for government to actually revamp the pockets of households. Yeah, and I actually call upon parishes out there to actually utilize this fund, the parish development model fund, the financial pillar. If you put this model in place, surely at least we shall see our country grow, and we shall actually attain a sustainable middle income class. Yeah.
Which you believe you're already there?
Not really. We are not there.
Ubos yesterday reaffirmed that and said, well,
No.
we are there and we hope.
We hope to get there, but we are really
we'll
not
maintain that
there.
for the next 3 consecutive years, and then we shall have better ways of living, and of course that. But I was just still looking at the budget for the financial year 2022-2023. Is it child-centered or child-centric? You've talked about feeding. Now let's also look at the health bit of it. Okay. Because many of our children face a number of challenges, but health is the biggest challenge. Now we've moved away from those that don't make it to their 5th birthday, I mean don't make 5 years. We have had some improvement. And I remember one person said the challenge of NRM is managing success. That today you're having unemployment, but the youth are alive. Previously diseases were consuming them. They couldn't make to their 1st birthday. 5 years would be a miracle. Today all these are living. But how does this budget factor in this?
Yeah, actually we've seen government really come up post-COVID, even during the COVID-19, to actually try a lot to revamp the health sector to at least sustainable levels where people can actually access free health care services, yeah, in various health centers across the nation. But we actually noticed that a number of health centers are still understaffed, yeah, whereby the staff in existing health facilities are really attending to many patients at a time, and this constrains them, and also it hinders the quality of healthcare services being given to the patients coming in. On the other hand, we also see that there are drug stockouts in a number of times in major health facilities of this nation. So in the recent years,
are these stockouts or theft?
Yeah, it's two-way. Really,
because
for sometimes
they could be that government puts the drugs there and someone comes and takes the drugs, or is it that even the drugs are not put there?
Actually, yes, the few that are put there, sometimes they're stolen. Or sometimes they're actually not stolen, they are hidden by the health in charges, and they want to sell the services to the Ugandans, which is very wrong. So we are not for this, we are against it, and we call upon all health facilities to take charge of this, because the life of Ugandans is really critical. So when we look at health, indeed we see the understaffing in health facilities. In the recent years, that was about 2018, government took up an initiative under the Health Development Grant from the World Bank to actually rehabilitate health centers and upgrade health center 2s to 3s in areas whereby health center 2s were serving a number of people, like a big portion of people in the community. And this has been rolled out in a number of districts. So when we look at a case in Apache, we see like about 2 health centers have actually been upgraded from health center 2s to health center 3s. But unfortunately, after completion of these health centers, they are still operating under the capacity of a health center 2. They are having about 9 staff instead of the requirement of 19 under health center 3. And these are serving a very large population of people. So when people go to access services, there are few doctors, there are few nurses, actually there are nurses to attend to them. So this can also increase the maternal child rate, the death of children, especially when mothers are delivering. In the event that the midwives are not available, so maybe they are tired, because they are also human beings. So you don't expect them to work from morning, like 24 hours, because they actually get tired, so they need rest. So we find the mortality rate has actually gone at live birth. We've seen that the numbers have reduced, but it's still an issue if government can actually fully staff these facilities. But also we see that there is also misuse of funds in some of these facilities, whereby government actually sends the money to facilities, but the monies are not to the district, but the monies are not absorbed, especially for the wage. Say they have not recruited. Of course, some districts claim that the district service commissions have not been constituted, so they cannot recruit in time. And then others claim that the Public Service Commission has not given a directive for them to actually recruit, because last in Auditor General's report for last year, we saw him come out to say that Mulago Hospital did not actually utilize the wage fund. Yet we have striking doctors, we have many doctors that are unemployed, which is really very bad. So there is need for government to tighten up, utilize the wage, such that you recruit the people who are intended with the little wage you have, as we see measures of how to bring in more people in service to actually serve Ugandans. Yeah, on the health bit, specifically to Karamoja, just as I earlier highlighted on the nutrition component, we have like numbers of malnutrition going up, yeah, whereby we have over 91,000 children malnourished in Karamoja today.
Very unfortunate.
Yes, as at 2022, June 2022. And of those, we also have about 9,500 mothers that either pregnant or breastfeeding who are also malnourished. So in 3 months in Kabong, we lose about 25 children under 5 to malnutrition. Yeah. So there is need for government to actually look at the feeding bit of this region, such that they can improve the health care of the place and of the citizens, in order to attain the human capital development, since it is a very big pillar to government for development and enhancing economic growth. Yeah.
This takes me back, we just from COVID, not meaning that it is done.
Yeah.
Yes, we still have the diseases with us. We continue urging you to perfect the standard operating procedures and also to ensure you go for vaccination. In case you've not been vaccinated, have your first, have your second. If you're above 50 or you have comorbidities, kindly go and have your third, which is a booster dose. We need you alive. But let's look at government's post-COVID initiatives aimed at revamping the education sector. How satisfactory have they been? Looking at you, the people that do the research here in the education sector, is it in a positive direction? Are they practical, and are we going to get results?
Yeah, to a large extent, government has actually tried to revamp the education sector, as we see the allocations towards education actually growing. Yeah, but just as I noted that we see a big tranche of the money actually goes to the wage. So when we look at the development component, I think government really needs to tighten up and do something about it, because we see dilapidated classrooms, schools don't have facilities, teachers have nowhere to sleep, and we also see continuous teacher strikes. Just about 3 weeks ago, children have not, especially in the primary sector, they have really not gone to school for about 3 weeks, yet they had missed a lot in 2 years. Yeah, when they went out of school during the COVID-19. So I wish government would actually settle its issues with the teacher. I wish it had actually settled its issues with the teachers in the 2 years before the schools are open. Because I remember during the lockdown, the president actually kept on highlighting that they would enhance salaries for the science teachers. So I wish that the arts teachers had complained at that stage, not coming in later when it is really a bad time. Children have already lost. They are also moving out to strike. Yeah, so it is a disadvantage on children. So we need to really revamp the sector by sorting out issues that are at hand with the teachers, and also enhance conducive learning environments for the children. Teachers are available, the classrooms are conducive for learning. We want to see that coming out. We want to see government contributing to the school feeding program. We want to see government actually contributing to the mindset change of the communities, to actually look at education as a critical aspect of life. But if we see our teachers running out of classroom, then that means that what will the children think? Many children will tell you, we are really tired. 2 years ago, we are out of school because of COVID-19. 3 weeks down the road, we are out of school because teacher salaries have not been enhanced. Yeah, so we are calling upon government to actually relook at the wage, yeah, and make sure that it's revamped, and for everyone, for all civil servants, not finding a a driver in one ministry earning over 15 million, then we have a teacher in a primary school getting 400,000. It's really not fair. So if government could look at this current structure and stabilize it for equitable allocation to all civil servants.
Well, I just want to ask you this question. Many times I've heard, and I want to understand, does salary enhancement mean improved service delivery? We saw some time back doctors. Recently we saw our Prime Minister going to some of these facilities who I believe that will have benefited or are to benefit, and they weren't there. So should we just take it as a blank statement that once we've improved salaries, then we are going to see teachers in class, we are going to have first grades we've never registered like ever before in these public schools?
Actually, salary enhancement is just one of the factors that contribute to actually good performance. It's just a factor, but it's not everything. Yeah. So if you enhance teachers' salaries, definitely to some extent, you're going to improve the results. But if it is also backed up by the other services that are actually required for good performance, say for instance, if you enhance salaries and there are no textbooks in schools, well, shall we have good results? Definitely not. So there is need for balance. Yeah, enhanced salaries as actually you also provide the conducive facilities for a child to actually perform well. Salary enhancement can only motivate the teachers to actually go and teach, but are the learners actually motivated to learn? Do they have a meal at school? Research has it that learners that actually get a meal at school perform better in class than those that are deprived from food while at school. Why? While at school, they're wondering the next minute, will I have a meal? I'm actually hungry. I'm dozing in class. I'm not going to get food. Yeah. So it means that as government is trying to enhance salaries for improved results, they also need to look at those other aspects that lead to poor performance. Dilapidated classrooms are a very critical measure. No desks in school, definitely. Pupils will not sit under a mango tree to study, and they actually perform well, even when the teachers are actually available in the schools. So as government is trying to enhance salaries, they should also look at setting up conducive conditions for learners to actually attain this education. They should be motivated to learn. Yeah, but the biggest thing government needs to do is mindset change. Talk to these learners. You need to study, bring role models to their schools, bring a Hilda who went to a UPE school, to her former school, to actually talk to the learners. You know, with education, I've become a better person. With education, these are the yields I've gained. You know, so if government is really going to get good results, we need to mobilize the communities to change their mindset towards education.
Well, still in the education sector, His Excellency, in one of his addresses, mentioned a very touching issue where he talked about retention in school or completion in school. Talked about 8 drop out by P7. You look at entry at primary 1, maybe about 20 million. By the time they end, you've lost about 8 million. How best or what strategies can we put in place to improve retention and completion of school in this country, mostly in public schools? Because if they tell you from P1 to P7, you're losing about maybe 6 million fallout and they don't complete. What is the problem? How can we address this?
Yeah, one of the biggest reasons actually learners are dropping out is food. Yeah. Yes, food. Having no meal at school, children are actually deprived. They are not happy. Right. Yes, food is
an empty stomach is a problem.
Exactly. So learners are actually forced to leave class to go and look for food. Yeah. So in the process of looking for food, there are many distractions. If it is the girl child, maybe they have gotten this other person to actually give them the food. They're distracted. They become pregnant. You know. So we should look at measures that can keep a learner in school. Yeah. First of all, if it's a girl child, what are the factors that actually lead them to drop out? Maybe they don't have menstrual cups, they don't have like menstrual hygiene. There are no safe places at school. So if actually government would put this in place, say for instance, they have put safe places for a girl child when they're in their peers, they can actually access the safe environment, they're confident about it, they will actually stay at school. Then on the other hand, the food is also a problem. So if government would actually provide this food, not only government, by the way, government and parents, yeah? If also parents come up to take their responsibility, this is a motivation, just as I noted earlier that in Karamoja, pupils will come to school for food, yeah? In the when they come to eat, they are also captured to come and learn. So it means that if there is constant food, provision of food in schools, the learners will actually stay in school. Then the other big reason why we are seeing these dropout rates, poverty. And a number of public schools are now charging fees, yeah? While UP is perceived to be free, purely free, we see public schools continuing to charge fees to children and parents, about 100,000. But with the current crisis, parents can actually hardly provide the 100,000. So for instance, a parent has 6 pupils in primary section. They are going to pay 600,000 in a term to these public schools, yeah, which is a very big figure to a local Ugandan who is out there who can hardly access food. Yeah, I wish these services are purely made free in a sense that, like as it is free, learners actually can access all the necessities to actually...
Well, just produce your child, then they go to school.
No. Parents should also provide the books, the learning materials, just as it is in the Education Act.
That's what I was looking in, because many parents today have lost sense of responsibility.
Exactly.
And whenever government comes out and talks about free things, that's why you see even some of the government programs, free things, these people don't value them. And they keep on thinking government must. Government must. Yes, government has a responsibility, no doubt about that. Education is a human right. It is a right for every child to go to school. But I feel even parents have the biggest responsibility over their children.
Yeah, actually that is very true. But I want government to put this very right. Don't tell parents that education is actually free. Tell them while the classrooms are free to access, while the teacher services are free to access, parents are supposed to buy books, parents are supposed to buy uniform. Put it out there clearly. Don't make pronouncements that UP is purely free. Yeah? In the event that actually parents are willing to contribute to school feeding, let them contribute and let it be brought to light.
But that is where the problem is coming from, because the heads of these schools, they come up with PTAs, which are also the Education Act available for. And they are the ones, His Excellency has already said, when we drafted this, there was no penny supposed to be charged. But now we hear teachers and parents agreed. And they agree at a figure, or they agree or they don't, that puts out some of the vulnerable children.
Yeah, on my view to that, let actually the ones who can afford pay, yeah? Let's be responsible, let's be each a brother's keeper, yeah?
So this one's child goes to eat because they paid, this one, same class, may be just spectating.
Would you actually feel good to have children in the same class, others eating and others are not?
I wouldn't.
Definitely not. So I would love to have programs that actually look at a child, every child in school as a whole, yeah? Just as I highlighted that we need school gardening, yeah? With school gardening, you actually don't need to input a lot. It's a one-off. After investing this financial year in the previous years, things will work out themselves. The surplus can actually be sold to cater for other things like firewood, paying the cooks and all that. If we get holistic programs that can look at the entire child, whether poor, whether rich, the disadvantaged, the advantaged, all are supposed to attain education, all are supposed to have equal rights. If it is a meal in school, all children are supposed to actually eat. Yes.
Very interesting. We are looking at, that is the budget for the financial year 2020-2023. And we are analyzing if it is child-centered or how it has invested in children. And very important here is looking at what should be done. Yes, the budget allocations were given, but what should be done to ensure address some of these bottlenecks, some of these gaps that, if not worked upon, maybe we may not achieve the desired goal. This brings me to another area, which is child protection. Briefly, child protection. How was this factored in? Today we are seeing so many children on the streets. We are seeing so many children being defiled, so many children, you know, in hazardous forms of labor. How was it catered for, if at all it was envisaged?
With child protection, government has actually come up with a number of measures. We have parasocial workers in these communities to actually look at cases of children. But the biggest thing government can do on child protection is really mindset change. Because if you don't change the mindset of communities, now with COVID-19, we've seen a number of girls really get pregnant, yeah. A number of girls have gotten pregnant, but where are the men who have impregnated these girls? They are nowhere to be seen, yeah. So the child actually carries the burden. So I wish we would actually embark a lot on mindset change, community mobilization and mindset change. If it is a girl child, how are we as entire community motivating this girl to actually go to school? Instead of kidnapping her, instead of defiling her, encourage her to go to school. Make sure the girl is in the right place and at the right time. In this, parents have a very big role to play with social protection and child protection in particular. We want to see parents out there guard their children jealously, yeah, as the state also does its work. At least now we have peace in this nation, the security is okay. But if the security is okay, what has a parent done to ensure that this child is not raped? This child has not run out of school, yeah? Encourage the learners to keep in the right place and the right time. Government initiatives are very commendable on social protection, where we've seen the parasocial workers, the child protection units of police, but we still see the numbers of child abuse still going high. This is because maybe of domestic violence in homes, which is partly caused by poverty, where parents are fighting each other and the child is also, the child also gets abused in the process. So it's really mindset change. How do parents live with each other in a conducive environment to ensure that this child actually grows up very well, as the state also does its role?
So much has been said. It's all about children, and it's all about ensuring that we protect, we safeguard, we put in place what is needed by the next generation for them to have or ensure we get the best out of them. Their potentials are brought out very well. And this as a background on how much has been allocated, and we've been trying to analyze these allocations away from figures. What are they going to do? Are they in the right direction? Are they recurring expenditures? Are they looking at development? Are they actually working into the areas of improved nutrition, education, health, and child protection? Well, time is also much on our side, and Hilda, let me get your final remarks.
Yeah, I would love to call upon government to actually look at revamping the education sector to pre-COVID levels or even beyond, whereby school feeding is a very big aspect. We want to see government actually invest a lot, even the parents doing their role, to revamp school gardening. Yeah, in areas where it can work, let us go and revamp school gardening. Let parents work. Parishes that are going to benefit from the parish development model, I would love to urge you to actually put the resources to right use to elevate household income. Let us all contribute to the national resource envelope, because without that, government will keep on borrowing, which is on a disadvantage. We see a very big chunk of the budget going to interest payments. Imagine government didn't have that debt. This money would have to go to social service sectors, human capital development program, you see, you know. So we need to all contribute to the GDP, put the programs government has set up to the right use, and optimally utilize these resources. The parishes that will receive the funding, put them into good ventures that will actually elevate the household income. Then we also call upon government to actually fight corruption, which is one of the biggest hindrances to economic development in this country. A lot has been lost to corruption, and we need to see government take action. If you get a corrupt government official, whether not even government, because it starts with me and you, so let's all put it in our mind that it's a Uganda for me and you. Let's not be selfish to actually steal the resources that are intended to benefit the least of those. You just pile it in your household. Think about it. People are crying, they have no food, but for you have over 1,000 sacks of rice in your house. You're going to remember, food has low income inelasticity of demand. So even if you pile the food, even if you pile the monies, it's just a short life. Let's be each other's keeper. Let's change our mindset. Let's stop the corruption. Let's feed our children, our nation.
I just pray and hope that the corrupt have had. I pray and hope that they have had. Because you're depriving others, you're gathering so much, and Hilda's just said, life is short. Let's be each other brother's keeper. And above all, let's know that there is a generation that is going to come after us. And those children, if we don't prioritize them, they're going to be the people that our children we've protected, we've put fences around, we've treasured so much, taken to expensive schools. Those are going to be the people that they are going to live with in a world. Now, there will be a problem to the children we are protecting. Together, let's prioritize each and every child. Every child matters. Every child matters. Let's ensure that we protect, we enable them live to their full potential. Have a lovely day. God bless you.